Hello lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, welcome back to another video. Last week we took a look at the all-time classic in old school RuneScape, which leads us directly into today's video, the current release, which is known as RuneScape 3. Making me ask, is this version better, or just a shell of its former self? Jumping into the more modern version of the game, there are a few things you'll notice immediately if you've only ever played old school RuneScape like I have, which the most obvious change being the game's graphics. No more does RuneScape look like a blocky early 3D prototype, its visuals now are fully realized, and it's honestly a lot prettier than I expected. I have somehow in all my time online never managed to see anything to do with it, so upon booting this up, it blew my mind as to how pretty it can be. Sure, it's not going to have the most high-res textures or anything too crazy, but it has wonderful lighting that really shows off the game's aesthetic. It's got a very warm tone to it, making it feel very inviting, and it makes grinding those skills feel just a little bit more immersive. Speaking of immersive, the game's sound effects are much improved compared to the original. Sure, they're not the greatest thing you're ever going to hear, but for a free online game, I'm not complaining. The game's music is probably the only thing that I kind of feel is a downgrade, but that's just a personal taste. Overall, the quality is better, however, I do kind of miss that Super Nintendo-y sort of sound that the original had. I don't mind having a full orchestra, but it just feels a little more generic at that point, feeling like it's losing a little bit of that charm. You'll also notice the game's HUD is a lot different compared to that of the original, since it now resembles that of a more modern MMO. We have multiple panels open at pretty much any time, and we also have an action bar that can be loaded up with skills and items. I will get to those skills shortly, but I do want to finish up on the HUD here, as I do find myself in two minds about it, mainly because, at least at first, it can be a little bit of information overload. It's a big problem a lot of MMOs have, especially older ones, when they try to get you to get to the endgame content sooner rather than having you grind it out, mainly because they want you to be able to play with everyone who's already been playing for 20 years. The issue is, it can be a little bit hard to navigate at first. Once you get used to it, it's not too bad. To mitigate this, RuneScape has a wonderful system where you can customize pretty much everything here. You want to turn off global looting and just play it like you used to? You can. You want to turn combat into the original game system? You can. RuneScape 3 keeps that spirit of old school RuneScape alive and well, letting the player play how they see fit. Going to that combat and the skills, we have a few options here. We still have the same three core combat types from old school RuneScape with melee, ranged, and magic, and although yes, they still technically function the same, they have been expanded upon a little bit here. Upon leveling up these types of combat, you can unlock new abilities, and these abilities can give you different bonuses in battle. And we have a few options when it comes to them as well. We have the option for manual casting, allowing us to pop those skills as we see fit. We have an auto cycle mode that will just go through the list that you set up, and you can just play the game how it used to. It's actually really refreshing to be able to just bounce between each depending on my mood on the given day. It's more than just combat that sees additional mechanics added, and although I love these abilities and the adrenaline meter as a system, it's actually really nice to level other skills as well. Smithing sees you having to manage the heat of the metal that you're working with in order to be more efficient. Same with mining and your character's energy. Not every skill sees these additions, however, it does reward the player for interacting with the game a little bit more. You're incentivized to be more involved in what you're doing. Overall, I think it's a better design choice, and definitely makes for a much more entertaining game. With this said, it is important to note the game isn't without its faults, at least in my book. As mentioned before, RuneScape does have its fair share of things locked behind the membership paywall, and although it's definitely worth the money, old school RuneScape did it in a better way to me. I say this because even though old school RuneScape would remind you that it was an option, it never felt necessary. However, with RuneScape 3, there are reminders everywhere, making it feel like it's something you need to have. There is so much content that's shoved in your face that you just can't access now, unless you want to spend money or buy the in-game bonds, which is something I'll talk about shortly. The other main issue I see is the introduction of microtransactions. Now, they aren't required, again, this is a completely optional system, but I feel like it doesn't really need to be here. They have the key system in order to get different unlocks, and although yes, you can earn keys in free to play, given the fact that these can give you some pretty damn good items, you kind of feel incentivized to almost spend the money. I forgot to talk about it in the old school RuneScape video, but I'm going to talk about it here, and that's the bonds that I mentioned before. These allow you to earn membership in-game. Now, they functionally work the same between old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3. However, what is different is the pricing. In old school RuneScape, you can probably get one between 10 to 12 million gold, at least at the time of recording. Whereas in RuneScape 3, it's upwards of 120 million to 130 million gold, meaning you're going to have to spend a long time grinding to try and get membership. Now, once you have membership, earning that kind of gold becomes a lot more viable. However, it does incentivize you wanting to spend that membership money. And to me, this is a big problem because RuneScape is asking for 20 Australian dollars a month.
He's dreaming.
Now, I know that might be $2 American on a good day, but that is a lot, considering I can get World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV for about 17. It just feels a little too pricey, at least in my region. If this is a game you thoroughly enjoy though, as I mentioned before, you can earn this in-game, and it's a wonderful system for that. There are plenty of accounts that exist that have membership just from playing, never spending a single cent, and I think it's wonderful that it is an option for players. RuneScape 3 at its core keeps the spirit of the original release alive and well, and even though we have additional combat mechanics, new skills, and even new quests, if you haven't played in 20 years, you can still jump in and play the game you remember, albeit a bit better looking. It does suffer from a lot of the same issues as old school RuneScape, particularly in the quests. However, with the quality of life additions that we do have, it's not as bad, especially the teleporters. They make life way better. I enjoyed my time with RuneScape 3 way more than I initially anticipated. And I will be honest, I went in ready to dislike a fair chunk of this game just because I am very nostalgic for old school RuneScape, but it's just that. Nostalgia. RuneScape 3 is better in pretty much every way, and I would say it's the better place to start. Unless you want a really simplified game to play. RuneScape as a series is probably the best way to get into MMOs if you've been trying to get into them, because you have the option to play as casual or as hardcore as you'd like, and that's the beauty of RuneScape. It still has that core essence of allowing you to play how you want to play. I know I didn't cover as much in this video as I did in the old school RuneScape video, but that's because there's a fair bit of overlap and you don't really need to hear me say the same thing twice. If you want to know more about the series as a whole, go watch that video. I do think it's pretty good, but I'm biased as all hell. You won't really go wrong playing either version of RuneScape, and there is a reason why RuneScape as a series has been the main competition, at least in the free-to-play space, to World of Warcraft, and it's a game that you're not going to regret spending a few hours just having a bit of fun in. So with that, lads, ladies, gents, ladettes, whoever, whatever, it brings us to the end of another video. I hope you enjoyed this dive into RuneScape 3. If you play Iron Man mode, let me know down below. What level's your character and what drew you to it? Because it scares the crap out of me, even though I play hardcore and Diablo all the time. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. If you want to go that extra step, you can hit the subscribe button. And if you want to go that extra mile, you can support me on Ko-fi from just $1 a month, like these lovely people here. And with that said, I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.